So I wanted to talk about peptides and cancer care, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So one of the most common questions I get asked in consultations, and I do a lot of natural oncology support, is are peptides safe or unsafe when it comes to cancer, risk with cancer, or even once you've had cancer and you're in a good position right now, can they reignite cancer to come back? So to answer that question, it's really important to ask, what are peptides? So basically peptides are amino acid chains that occur naturally within the body. When we make a peptide, it's like an artificial or man-made amino acid chain, but it's still what we mimic within the body. And they basically direct functions. So we can have peptides that direct hormones, peptides that encourage regeneration in the body, and there's peptides that can do things like bring down inflammation. Now, peptides are super popular right now. They're all across social media. They're being touted by longevity clinics. They're being used by sports people. And it's no wonder, because peptides have actually been around for a very long time without people realizing. And there's different types of peptides. Now, peptides are actually used in cancer care, believe it or not, and they're used for vaccines, and they're used for testing processes. So there's certain types of peptides. Good example is things like tumour marker tests. That actually comes from a peptide. A lot of GRH or luteinizing kind of drugs, they are actually taken from peptides as well. So there are certain types of peptides. But to ask the question whether peptides are safe when it comes to cancer or tumour biology is to ask the question, what is the role of the peptide? Because the big question comes down to, yes, you may be healing the body, but are you promoting any metabolic pathways when it comes to cancer? And that's really the question we want to ask. So some peptides are actually very useful, but many other peptides actually can be harmful. So to ask that, let's have a look at some different peptides and which ones seem promising when we look at supporting oncology or cancer basis as well. So probably the most promising peptide to look at is thymosin alpha-1. So what that is, it's a peptide that works more on the immune system. So basically what it does, it stimulates natural killer cells within the body. It stimulates T lymphocytes. So it's working directly on the body's immune system. A lot of the research has been around using this thymosin alongside things like immunotherapy or other kind of orthodox cancer therapies to keep the immune system strong, so we don't get a drop in the T cells and we have our own natural killer cells to go and actually fight cancer. So this is one of the most promising ones. Probably the most common peptides that we see people talking about today have a lot to do with anti-aging and longevity. So they would be things like, we all know, BPC-157. That's a really common one. The other one is TB-500. And then you're going to chat growth hormone increasing kind of peptides, right? So these are probably the most common that we look at. And are they safe or are they dangerous? And as I said, the way that we look at it is, if they're promoting any metabolic growth pathway that is linked to cancer, then they generally are not considered safe. So look at what BP-157 does. It's amazing. It's tissue regeneration, encourages healing in the body. It's called the Wolverine of the peptides. And the reason why is it's directing the body to heal at a faster pace. How does it do this? It does it by angiogenesis, which is bringing in new blood supply or capillary supply to make the body heal very rapidly. Fantastic for when we have injuries, we have any healing and any damage to the body, we have leaky gut, all these problems. It's amazing. But when do you not want it? You do not want it when you have cancer. The reason why is cancer is already generating a lot of blood supply and angiogenesis towards a tumour. So if you take something like this, you have the risk of bringing in more blood or more nutrition to it, and it could enhance its growth. Definitely not a safe one to be using if you particularly have cancer. The second one is TB-500, same sort of thing. It encourages healing within the body. It stimulates angiogenic molecules, your VEGF, EGF, things like this. And this is what you don't want to have for tumour biology, because one of the things with tumour biology is to cut off all those angiogenic factors, the VEGF, EGF, FGF, PDGF, and this will just actually stimulate it more. So another one, definitely not safe with cancer, these two. And then the other one is looking at growth hormone stimulating peptides. So a lot of peptides can stimulate hormone production, right? So these ones are not safe if you have a neuroendocrine tumour or even sometimes breast and prostate, particularly if it's stimulating more growth supply via hormones to that particular tumour, and that is one of its food supplies or growth factors. So you want to be cautious with these kind of peptides. The one that's safe, like I said before, is thymosin. Very promising, being researched all around the world. I've known about this for years. I know a lot of doctors that promote it. And this is more looking at your beautiful little natural killer cells that go and gobble up the cancer cells. So working more on the immune system. The other question I get asked a lot is, what if I am in remission and I've had cancer and now I want to take peptides? Now, this is the other big one. The question is to ask, are you fully in remission? Because I always say after you've beaten cancer, you still have to be vigilant for many years, particularly 2 years. What you need to do is, I always say to people, is do a blood test looking at things like your circulating tumour cells, a main tract test, OncoTrace, whatever it may be. There's a lot of different companies doing this testing to look at and see whether there's any old stem cells left over from your original cancer. Yes, you might be coming up clear in scans, but remember, scans can only pick up something when it's sizable, at 2 millimeters, basically. So if it's smaller than that and you've still got some of these old cancer stem cells in your system, if you then do these and stimulate more growth kind of pathways, you could be in a not so great position and it could prove more harmful than positive. So I always say it's best to actually do some incredible testing, find out where you're at, find out if you haven't got any of those cancer stem cells, and then if you do need healing or you need some longevity factors, looking at things like this if you need to. That's the other side of things. And as we said, there's hundreds and hundreds of different peptides out there. When I'm looking for something like that, you have to look at your situation, any biology to your previous tumour, if you know this, and if you don't, there's some amazing testing that can actually help you to look at the targeting of the genetic pathways of your actual cancer in the first place. And then you'll know what's safe and actually what isn't safe as well. So there is a bit of a caution for me around peptides, and also a bit of caution about getting where we actually access them from. Yes, they're illegal, but that doesn't matter to say that they're actually bad for you at all. Oftentimes, if they're illegal, they're saying, oh, there hasn't been much research. There's been a lot of research with peptides, as little as they don't want you to know. But it's also, just like anything, a supplement, a fish oil, wherever we get it from, they can be good and bad, because a lot of these types of products can have heavy metals, excipients, toxins in them. So if you're getting it, you'll need to get it from a reputable source. It needs to be purity tested as well, which is super important, so you're not putting more toxins into the body. In a lot of ways, I really love that we're gravitating our research or science towards this kind of area. It's really important, but it's also important to understand, is there any danger in any situation like cancer or active tumours where peptides should actually be avoided? And yes, there is. That's one area. How's that, Cards? Got that. Generation. Why are peptides being so promoted in the world at the moment? A lot of the reason why is people want to stay young. We want longevity. We want to look younger, basically. So peptides are a fantastic support aid for this. I always say to people, if you're going to do something like peptides, which is I am not against at all in the right situation, you want to get your body right at the same time, because remember, they are amino acid chains and they are directing the body to do healing. But you also need to get homeostatic balance so that healing can occur at a great pace and very effectively. So the better you are internally, as far as amazing absorption, eating the right foods, getting the right mindset, then these will actually work a lot more effectively. We've got to remember any therapy that stimulates healing is amazing, but we've got to make sure that it's not also stimulating a growth pathway when it comes to things like cancer. We have, so I think that's right. That's right. I can research purity. Yes. So what is the key principle people with cancer should follow with peptides? Does this peptide help you, or does it help the cancer biology? That's what I always say. If a peptide stimulates angiogenesis, cellular proliferation pathways, and growth hormone pathways, then it needs to be used cautiously or not at all. If it works on the immune system and it has immune modulating or supportive properties, then that is a reasonable peptide to actually look at, right? So after 30 years of working in the cancer industry, there's one thing I can tell you is that when we look at cancer, I'm very big on this. I love to do incredible testing or diagnostics because every person, tumour biology is different. For instance, I could have 10 people come and say, I have triple negative breast cancer. Now, each of those triple negative breast cancers will not be the same, no matter what anyone tells you. And in fact, they will be treated the same generally in the normal medical industry, but they're not the same. So if you have access or have a small amount of money to be able to do some incredible testing, then it's really important to look at some genetic testing, but not just the normal genetic testing they look at for doing immunotherapy or using cancer drugs, but looking at something like an RGCC, Onconomics Plus. There's some companies in Brisbane that do it. There's many companies overseas, and they either take your tumour tissue or they take the blood where you have your circulating tumour cells, and then they actually look at all the growth pathways, signalling pathways, metabolic pathways of your particular cancer. So you're looking at things that how much angiogenesis does it have? How much insulin growth factors is it feeding off? What are the proto-oncogenes like? All of your different signaling pathways. We're also looking at the stem cells. Are they tightly woven? Are they hard to break apart? What's my P27, P53, P16 gene doing? Have they been switched off? So looking at every single pathway of your particular cancer and understanding that, you'll know what will work the best for you. It'll also give you a deeper understanding of whether you could safely use peptides or not. And once again, it needs to be under supervision. So in Australia, you can still see some very good doctors which will actually prescribe the peptides. So you know you're getting purity, you know you're getting the potency, you know you're not getting any excipients within them, which is something very important to have a look at. And you also know you're not taking something that could actually make you worse. So I always ask, if it's going to be safe, is it going to be safe for me, or is it going to enhance the tumour's biology or the metabolic pathways? If it does look like a risk like that, definitely avoid. Okay. The patients want to know whether they're present. I will see once it's moving close. Okay. So the number one question I get asked by patients that have cancer, are peptides safe? Okay. As I've just said over and over, peptides are amino acids that stimulate biology within the body. So what do? Peptides, they act as biological signals. They act as biological signaling compounds. So they can signal tissue regeneration, new blood vessels to grow, to bring down inflammation. So if your particular cancer uses that biology for growth, then it is something you definitely want to consider will maybe not be safe in your situation. In other situations where we don't have cancer, there's no risk there, there's no cancer stem cells, then, and we want regeneration, we want longevity factors, then they can be extremely safe. But in many cancer situations, it has to be the right type of peptide. If the peptide is working more just on the immune system, which is what we were talking about before with something like thymosin, yes, it's completely safe because it's working on the white blood cells, it's increasing them, and in many cancer situations, this is what we are looking for. Natural killer cells directly are cytotoxic to cancer cells, so the more we get and the greater they scavenge, the better and healthier we will become. What else could peptide? Now, could taking peptides make cancer come back? This is highly dependent on where you are. How many years ago did you have cancer? Do you have any cancer stem cells left in the body? Is the risk still there, or is the risk lower than actually taking it? So we need to ask, once again, what type of peptide are we using? Are we stimulating angiogenesis? Are we trying to bring down inflammation? So the type of peptide is the issue and the problem. Another really good example is everyone loves, is it CU copper, GKU peptide, which is, I think, an incredible peptide, and most of us need copper. Copper's great for inflammation, makes collagen, heals the body, makes your skin look amazing. But you also we have to remember, in some cancer situations, copper can promote angiogenesis. So if we're in a situation where we've got a lot of angiogenic molecules or proteins with our particular cancer and we add more copper in, one thing that will happen is it could actually stimulate more angiogenesis. The other thing it tends to do is it can displace zinc and copper, work against each other. So if you're taking something like that and you're going, oh, it's amazing for my skin, remember it will be depleting the zinc, and zinc controls 300 functions in the body per day. Immune system, absorption, gut health, all these other functions. So it's really important to be aware of this. A lot of people don't realize, yes, peptides are amazing, they're stimulating things, but in the process of that, they can bring other things down. And it's important to know the balance, which a lot of people actually don't talk about.